Good morning and welcome to the webinar for today, Overview of Women-Owned Small Business, WOSB and EDWOSB certifications with NorCal, PTAC, and the Women's Business Center of Oakland. We're really excited for our presentation today. We've got a great audience out there, and we're excited to do what we can to help you out through these certifications and just to let you know some of the resources that are available to you. My name is James Forrest. I am the program coordinator for NorCal PTAC. I'll talk about what NorCal PTAC is in a moment. We're the hosts of today's webinar. We also have Nancy Pigeon giving the main part of the presentation today. Nancy Pigeon is a procurement specialist with NorCal PTAC, one of our great specialists that work with us. And our featured partner guest for today is Darlene Neal, the director of the Women's Business Center of Oakland, the New America Community Corporation. And we've partnered with Darlene many times, and it's always a pleasure. So we'll hand the floor to Darlene briefly after we just talk a little bit about NorCal PTAC, which is the Northern California Procurement Technical Assistance Center. Yes, it's a mouthful. That's why we go for NorCal PTAC for short. Basically what we are a nonprofit program, part of a network of centers across the country. There's about 7 in California alone. So some of you mentioned you're in the Sacramento area. That would be the California Capital PTAC. One of you mentioned you're in Salinas. That would be the Monterey Bay PTAC. There's different PTACs with different service areas. So if you want to know if you're in our service area, take a look on this map on the right here in green. These 15 counties, mostly coastal, although also in the rural north, some of the inland. These are the counties that we cover for our client services. So if you have an established if you have an established business, you're not a brand new startup or pre-venture, you're interested in government contracting, so you're not looking for financing or loans or business startup assistance. Those are things that Darlene Neal and her team could probably help you with. But if you're looking for government contracting assistance and you have a primary business in one of these 15 counties, these 3 eligibility criteria might get you in the door for applying for PTAC services. So what does that mean? Well, it means that we take you on as a client and we can meet with you individually to go over your needs and your goals for government contracting. So this is mostly a remote option that we have right now for having one-on-one meetings with our procurement specialists. So they can go over anything, whether it's marketplace research, getting your registrations, certifications like we're talking about today, reviewing bid proposals. If you win, we're looking at compliance, how to close out even contracts. So it's really a cradle to grave sort of assistance, all different levels of government. So when we say government, we don't just mean the federal government. Today we're talking about federal government certifications, the WOSB, EDWOSB, but we also help with local, so city, county, municipality, tribal, and state levels of government contracting. So really pretty across the board. If it has to do with contracting with a government entity, then we help with it. The other thing we can do for our clients, if you're in our client database, you've put in an application, is we can set you up with a custom bid matching profile. What this does is it scours the internet for opportunities, bids that match the criteria you've worked out with your specialist. And then it sends these to your inbox hyperlinked and all ready to go. It's a really nice tool. We pay for it and then we offer it to you for free. We want you guys to make it as easy as possible and to get right to the good part, which is bidding on them and helping your business grow. So with these methods, we've helped our clients win more than $500 million in 2020. That number has gone up in 2021. We're getting that data together. And so far, about 7 or 8 months into our grant year already, we've had about the same figure. So we're blowing this number out of the water. That just means more money into small, disadvantaged owned businesses. So we're really happy to be helping our community in that way. Of course, we also put on resources and trainings. You're all here today, so you understand that you can join these webinars for free no matter where you are. You don't have to be in our service area. And we've got tons of events coming up. You can find all of this information and more. NorCalPTAC.org is our website. This is where you'll find our center calendar, resources. We have links to a ton of local contracting and things like that, and where you can sign up. It's also where you'll find today's presentation and a bunch of others going back the last 3 or 4 years on our website under resources and past webinars. If you're not in our service area, there's a second link here. Find your local PTAC, click on that, and it will bring you to a directory of PTACs across the country. All right. And as I mentioned, our featured guest today is Darlene Neal, who is always doing great work as the director of the Women's Business Center in Oakland. And so I'm going to let Darlene talk a little bit about her role and what they do and what they can do for you. So go ahead and take the floor, Darlene. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, James. And good morning, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today. Great information will be shared with you today through PTAC, such a wonderful organization that helps through this process of government contracts. A New America is a nonprofit organization, and we've been serving the community for over 20 years. And our goal is to really help entrepreneurs that are starting their business to launch and go through specific things to help you understand what it requires to legalize your business, as well as helping existing businesses through pivoting and growing. We do this through a number of ways with one-on-one consulting, training, webinars that we offer are available on our website. And also we are here to help with support as a resource partner through the SBA. We are partly funded, as well as the State of California Governor's Office of Business, Economic and Development. And so through this, we are able to assist you at no charge. So our services are free, and we are here to help you based on your individual needs. So again, enjoy today's webinar, and we look forward to assisting you. If you should need our assistance, our email address is there at www.anewamerica.org. And you can visit our website for more information on our services and different webinars we offer as well. And I'll turn it back over to you, James. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Darlene. Like I said, they're great partners, and it's a really complementary partnership because they can help with all sorts of things that we cannot, according to our funder restrictions. And we're not, so we're set up for procurement assistance, and they can help with just about everything else. So we're really happy to have this partnership, and thanks for joining today, Darlene. Darlene's been sticking around. So, but right now it's time for the main presentation. We already have a couple questions in here. That's great. I just a little bit of housekeeping. Folks can enter their questions that they have that they want read aloud during the Q&A. So we will be having a Q&A at the end of this session. If you have any questions that are relevant for the presentation about the subject matter that Nancy's talking about that you think would be good to have answered aloud, then please enter into the Q&A tab, not the chat. So the chat, it's a bit difficult to follow questions when everything else is going on in there. So please enter those into the Q&A, and we'll answer them as time permits. So we already have a question here. If Sacramento County is in one of our service areas, and California Capital PTAC is the location you're looking for. So I'll go ahead and post a link to our service area in there, and you can take a look at it. But let's go ahead and hand the reins over to Nancy here. So Nancy, thank you so much. You're in great hands with Nancy Pigeon. She's one of our best. So thanks, Nancy.
Oh, thanks, James. Well, I just want to say happy Cinco de Mayo too. I know it's that day, and hopefully everyone has plans, maybe some margaritas or, something fun like that. We'll just jump right in here to a little bit about me, my bio there. You can see it on the screen. I am a retired Air Force veteran. I did 22 years. Spent the first 10 years doing ammo, which is munitions, building bombs and stuff for the A-10 aircraft, which I totally enjoyed, but decided contracting might be a better option for my career. And so I cross-trained in that, and I did 12 years in contracting there. Retired, and then I joined the federal contracting civilian service. So I worked at the Air Force civilian for 2 years in Dayton, Ohio. I'm from California, so I moved out to California with a Veterans Affair in Sacramento. I was there about 4 years, and then I moved on to the Bureau of Reclamation, also in Sacramento, Department of Interior. And I was there 4 years. The last year I was there, I was a small business specialist. So I was helping small businesses, you know, work with the BOR, taking in their information and spreading it out to the buyers, you know, looking for woman-owned small business and service disabled, so we could fulfill our goals each year. And I grew to love that job. And when I was ready to leave the Bureau, this job in NorCal PTAC opened up, which I was really interested in working more closely with the contractors, trying to get them registered in SAM, and, you know, all the hurdles you have to go through to get into government contracting, whether state or federal or local. So I say my specialty is federal just because I spent so much time in the federal government, but, you know, I've been here 3 years now, so I'm pretty familiar with the state too. But the best part of the job is working one-on-one with my clients. I really enjoy that, and building a roadmap for them, and seeing them succeed. That's the best part. So I truly enjoy this job. So and today we're going to spread the word about woman-owned small business and economically disadvantaged woman-owned small business certification for the federal government. So this is totally a federal government certification, and it is an overview. So we will go through things rather quickly, and you probably won't gather everything that you want to know. So I encourage you, once this is done and you think this is the correct certification for you, if you already have a PTAC counselor, go ahead and, you know, ping them and say, I want to, you know, I want more information and I want to go through this process. If you don't have a PTAC counselor, go ahead and sign up. Everything we do is free, so it's not going to cost you anything but, you know, a couple of Zoom meetings and your time to, you know, support your business. Okay, and I have to do the disclosure. Let's see, is my clicker working? There we go. Okay, so disclosure, and James, you want to put up that poll while I read my little short verbiage here? We have a poll, right?
Sure, yes.
Yeah, okay.
It's working.
Just want to make sure. We didn't talk about it earlier. So as far as this presentation is concerned, yeah, go ahead and, you know, click on, read that poll and answer it. We just like to get a little information and, you know, start off with knowing who's in our audience. As far as the presentation, the information that I provided in this presentation is accurate to my ability. I have some statistics in there that I pulled the end of April, so they're fairly current. If there's any regulations or anything that I've quoted, just be aware that it's current as of the time that I posted it. If you're watching this, you know, a few months down the road or a year down the road, you might want to check the regulations to make sure they haven't changed, because regulations change every day in the government, and especially in contracting. You never really know contracting once you're in it, because things change, especially with the administrations and how Congress passes things. So, okay. How are we doing on that poll there, James?
We're doing great. We got lots of respondents. I'm going to go ahead and give you a little countdown. You have 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1. Okay, we're still getting the answers in, but I'll hit end poll now.
Okay.
So looks like about, exactly 2/3 of you are not certified with either. About 15% have the WOSB. Just one person has the EDWOSB. That is, by its nature, going to be a more of a rare option. We'll go over it as well. And then 22% are pulling your hair. So totally understand. The purpose of today is to help pique your interest and maybe make it so you pulling out less of your hair. So
yeah, we understand that last one. That's why we threw it in there. So that's good. So, you know, the 15 of you pulling your hair out, I hope you're working with a PTAC counselor to try to smooth that out for you. Don't go it alone.
No, you don't have to.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, let's just jump in here to our meat and potatoes. All right. For some reason, I have a delay in my clicker, I guess. So here's just our agenda for today. I'm just going to talk about the value of certifications, and you know, this is for woman-owned, or probably any certification is the value of certifications. We'll go through the purpose and the benefits, the important part, the program requirements, what's required to get the certification. We'll talk about the path to certification, which can be a long one, and the timeline. The path and the timeline are both can be long, and then maintaining your certification, which is important. And I forgot to put on here, I also have a slide in here on like the current stress points of you know, what's getting returned, so the current problems that exist in getting your application through. Okay, and we're going to start with the value of certification. So why are certifications valuable? If you don't know, the government agencies are mandated to award contracts to certified small businesses. And typically that annual goal is 23%, and that's all small businesses. So that would be just a regular small business, women-owned small businesses, veteran-owned small businesses, hub zones, and 8A type of contractors. So you can see in FY 2021, they exceeded the goal by a little bit, 25.55. And so far in 2022, and again, this is a statistic from April, that's 22.23 so far. So that's pretty good for the year, actually. That will end September 30th. So doing pretty good this year. And then over time, the federal government purchases about 600 billion in goods and services. So that's kind of an average. As you can see in 2021, they spent 476 billion, of which 122 billion went to all small businesses. And then so far in 2022, we have 186.6 billion, of which 41.5 billion have gone to small businesses. So that number will definitely increase as we enter the fourth quarter. Fourth quarter is when things get purchased. So that's July, August, and September, but they start ramping up in the third quarter. Okay, and again, another reason for valuable certification, it helps set your company apart in the marketplace and adds credibility. So, you know, the woman-owned certification or disabled veteran certification or a hub zone, those all help to set you apart from a regular small business. Increases access to government contracting opportunities because of the set-asides. So if you have a woman-owned small business and you are certified in an AX that allows for set-asides, it increases your opportunity for government contracts over a small business or some other categories. It also puts you on a radar for prime contractors to subcontract with you, because prime contractors are also set a goal by the government that they have to award a certain portion of their contracts to small businesses, and they get evaluated on that. So your certification will set you apart from other small businesses. If a prime is looking for, especially a woman-owned small business or a disabled veteran, for instance. It also increases your opportunity to network. You can, you know, take your certifications and go to, you know, matchmaking areas. You can go to maybe some pre-bid meetings and meet with primes at those meetings. So it gives you an opportunity to network yourself a little bit better when you have the certifications. And then the last one, and this is a totally other topic to get into. So it also makes you eligible for some more mentor protege opportunities, because you can get with a prime who wants to mentor a woman-owned business or a disabled veteran in order to increase their prestige as well with the government. Okay, and then the goal requirements, and we talked a little bit about this already. The SBA is responsible for ensuring what the goals are for small business annually. And the goal for the WOSB is historically 5% for federal contracts. And as you can see here, I don't think they've met that goal. I don't think they've gone over 5% since 2018. So they get pretty close, but not quite there. So that's the reason for getting certified and and looking for those set-asides for woman-owned small business, and taking part in the program is that the federal government needs to meet those goals, and it's a good opportunity for you to help them meet those goals if you get the certification. Okay, now we'll talk a little bit about the purpose. So it was established by this regulation, Woman-Owned Small Business Federal Contract Program. And the purpose was to ensure that woman-owned small business have an equal opportunity in the federal contracting. So this was to help break through the male-dominated areas of industries that are male-dominated. And so this will guarantee you can have a better equal footing in the federal contracting arena. The purpose was to ensure that women-owned have an equal opportunity to participate in federal contracting. I just said that, sorry for the repeat. So some of the benefits is any woman-owned business can apply, and it's nice to have the little emblem you can put on your capability statement or your website, showing that you are certified SBA. Now the benefits to set aside contracts, and I have in there for specific NAICS only. NAICS codes are a North American Industrial Classification System, and that's how you classify your business. And so for the set aside contracts, the Small Business Administration takes certain NAICS that are or that are male dominated, and they put them on a list for set aside contracts for women-owned small businesses. So when you're looking to get your certification, it would be important to look at I put the link for the table here. Go ahead and take a look at the table and see if your NAICS code's in there, because then that will allow you to compete for the set aside contracts. You can still do the WOSB even if your NAICS code isn't on the table, and that is just so you can advertise as a WOSB, and your participation will also help with the goaling. Sole source contracts, and again, these are for the specific NAICS only, and I put the little unicorn there because sole source contracts to women-owned small businesses are really rare. Usually it has to be, there's only one woman-owned small business that can provide that item that would get a sole source contract. If there's more than one woman-owned small business, they're going to compete it. So I like to put my little unicorn there because that's not something that you would look for on a regular basis as a sole source contract unless you have an absolutely new product. And again, we talk about subcontracting preferences with the prime. So they're always looking for women-owned and service disabled. Okay, program requirements. I'm going to get a quick drink because I'm getting horsey here. Okay, eligibility. So this is probably one of the main reasons you've come to the webinar today. So eligibility for the Women's Contracting Program, you must be a small business. And there's a link here. If you click on that, it's going to take you to the SBA Small Business Size Standard Table, and you'll look up, usually it's your primary NAICS that you want to be using for the certification, and just make sure you're small. If you're already registered in SAM, SAM's going to tell you whether you're small or not, and if you don't know where to find that, get with your PTAC counselor, or just take a look at the table. It must be at least 51% unconditionally owned and controlled by women who are U.S. citizens. And we will go more into the unconditionally owned and controlled. So this is to prevent a male dominated business from putting a female as a figurehead, and to claim the woman-owned small business certification. And then the woman has to manage the day-to-day operations and also make long-term decisions. So again, that's about totally owning the company, totally making all the decisions. That's the only way you're going to get the WOSB certification now. They used to allow self-certification, but there was a lot of fraud in that. And so now you have to totally prove that you are the woman that owns the business and you run it and you make all the decisions. Okay, and we're going to run through a little bit of that now. So we mentioned unconditionally and directly owned by one or more women. And then the direct means the ownership cannot be through a holding company or any other vehicle, with the limited exception of revocable trust. So you have to own it directly. If you have a trust, it has to be revocable, which means it can go away and that you won't lose the ownership in the business. And then unconditional means the ownership cannot be subject to acquisition by others. So in other words, there can't be anything like in the stock or anywhere in the language that says that you will forfeit the ownership by such and such. You have to own it unconditionally, and there's no way anyone else can take the business away from you. And then here's broken down into partnerships. At least 51% of each class of partner must be unconditionally owned by one or more women. So if you have a partnership, say male, female, the woman has to own 51% of the partnership. And I get asked all the time if it's two women that own it. If it's two women that own it, then you can prove that between two women, you own 100% of the business. So sometimes that's confusing for people. Whoa, bounced in there. And then for the LLCs, at least 51% of each class of member interest must be unconditionally owned by one or more women. And then for the corporation, the class of voting stock outstanding and 51% of the aggregate of all stock outstanding must be unconditionally owned by one or more women. So 51 is the key here. If you're a single woman that owns a business, but you have partners, your 51% has to be more than the other part. Well, of course, it's going to be more than the other partners, but you'll have to, show that in your documents that you own at least 51% of the business. You also have to control the long-term decision making, and again, this gets back to the figurehead type of thing. You have to be able to exercise the powers common to the corporate board of directors and control the board if one exists. And all this needs to be in your documentation, because you have to submit your documentation, and it needs to really explain that you're the one that owns and controls the board, and what you say goes, basically. You must hold the highest officer position in the company. And you must manage on a full-time basis and devote full time to the business concern. So you can't have another job and then also try to do this business. Your business concern must have a normal working hours, and you must manage it. If it's a 8-hour day, you need to be devoted full time to that 8 hours at the business. And then the woman holding the highest office position cannot have outside employment. And I kind of went over that with the last bullet. You have to be able to devote sufficient time to the WOSB. You can have men involved in the management as stockholders partners, but again, you have to have the 51%. They can hold a lower percent. And you may also have to have them be licensed. If you're in construction, the men in your business can hold the license as long as you make all the business operation decisions. And there you go. No males or entities can actually control or have power to control the concern. Okay, so that was the basic requirements for the women-owned small business. It's pretty easy. You don't have to submit a whole lot of financials or anything like that. You just have to prove through your business documents and your resume that you have full control and unconditional ownership. So when we meet with you, we would go through all of those documents to make sure you have that. Now for the EDWOSB, and I'm going to go ahead and click on that. You have to meet all the requirements of the Women's Contracting Program. And I'm going to go back to those NAICS code. When you look at the NAICS code table for the women-owned small business certification, if your NAICS off to the side, it has to say EDWOSB in order for you to apply to EDWOSB. And that's important because for the EDWOSB, you have to give them all your financial documents. So if you don't qualify for the EDWOSB under your NAICS codes, just apply for the WSB. That way you don't have to pull your hair out trying to get all of your financial documents in order. And there you go, be owned and controlled by one or more women. Your net worth has to be less than 750,000. You have to have 350 or less in an AGI averaging over the previous 3 years. And you have to have 6 million or less in personal assets. And you have to provide all of your financial documents for this. And if you're married, you have to provide your spouse's financial documents. So really consider if you're going to apply for the EDWOSB or not. They usually bundle the goals together, the WSB and the EDWOSB. And most set-asides are going to be for WOSB. They're very rarely set aside for EDWOSB. So to make your life easier, really consider the EDWOSB, talk it over with your PTAC counselor or another counselor or mentor of whether you want to apply for EDWOSB. I don't want to discourage it, just think through it fully. If a woman's adjusted gross income over the last 3 years exceeds 350,000, the SBA will presume the woman is not economically disadvantaged. You can exclude your LLC, S Corp, or partnership income if evidence shows the income was invested back into the company. So if you use that, pay it back in, you can exclude anything that came from the money if you reinvest it back into the company. So that won't be part of your adjusted gross income. And not just W-2 sources or income. If you take an ownership draw or a bonus company stock in lieu of cash, that counts. If you happen to win the lottery or get an inheritance, you can rebut that with a letter saying, that was just a one-time earning. It shouldn't count for my total income. Your adjusted net worth must be under 750,000. Which includes the equity in your personal residence, equity in the EDWOSB, income from an LLC, S Corp, or partnership if you reinvest it back into the company, exclude your 401k retirement. So that's the adjusted. The unadjusted net worth must not exceed 6 million, which excludes your 401k. But your primary residence and value of EDUSD are included in the 6 million. You have to submit your financial information for your spouse unless there's a legal separation. Your spouse's financial situation will be considered when the spouse has a role in the business. If he lends money to you, if he provides credit or other or guarantees a loan to business, then you have to provide, his income is going to be taken into account. And then also, if you are kind of running similar businesses, they're gonna look into that too. So they're really going to get into your business basically. They're going to get into your private business, your financial business, everything if you want the EDWOSB. So that's why I say to, pay attention to whether you want to do that or not. Like I said, I don't want to totally discourage it, but talk it over whether that's something you want to do. Okay, path to certification. I want to make sure I have time for questions, so let's get through some of these other ones. If you're not registered in SAM yet, the System for Award Management, you have to do that before you apply for the certification. You have to have a unique entity ID number to do the certification. So if you want to do that, we at PTAC can help you through the SAM registration. It's pretty difficult right now because they just changed the system. So I'd advise not doing it on your own. So get with your PTAC counselor or sign up for PTAC counseling or find someone else who's familiar with registering in SAM. It's pretty much a bear right now to get through that. And then they changed the rules on July 15th, 2020. Some of you who've been around a while may know that you used to be able to self-certify. And that's what I was saying earlier. They found a lot of fraud in that, so they changed it to where you actually have to go in and certify. So you can do it through the SBA certification site, which is mostly what I've been talking about today, which is free. But I highly advise having a PTAC counselor help you. You can also go through a certified third-party certifier. I'm going to click because they're all right here, which is a fee. And the fee is based on your income of your business. I know the lowest I've seen is $300. Something to take in consideration if you have $300 that you would like to put into it, you could consider it. And what you do is you provide them all the documents, they go through it, they talk to you back and forth, then they provide you the certification, and then you're able to go ahead and apply on the SBA site. You just upload your certification from say WeBank or any of these other, the El Paso Hispanic Commerce or the U.S. Women's Chamber of Commerce. And again, these are the only 4 third-party providers that the SBA accepts their certification. So if you want to go that route, you can do that as well. You may want to talk to a PTAC counselor before you decide what you want to do here, but help is available, is what I'm saying. Don't try to go on your own and pull your hair out like some of you have been saying. And if you are a veteran-owned or 8A certified woman-owned small business, all you have to do is, if you've gone through the VA and got your CVE certification, you can just upload that just like the third party, and that's all you have to do. And the same thing with the 8A. If you went through the 8A development program and you got your 8A certification, you can upload that just like the third party woman-owned small business certification. And you usually get approved and you don't have to upload a ton of other documents. It's pretty easy. It's pretty nice. Okay, and then we're going to talk about preparation. So I have the website here. You can click on that. They have a prepare site. On the homepage, you can go to the prepare link and it provides information. You can review the preparation checklist for certification. I recommend you print it out and start gathering the documents. All the documents need to be electronic because you're going to attach them to the application online. And I suggest that you put them all in one folder and you name them appropriately so that when you're in the application, because it can get, a little frustrating sometimes, put them all in one folder, name them properly so that when you go in to upload them, you can find it and just upload it and you're not searching around. Oh, there we go. I should have clicked one more time, I guess. Okay, and then also in the certifysba.gov site, they also have a knowledge base, which is really nice. If you do plan to try to go on your own, you can look at the training media. Let me click one more time. The training media is, little videos on how to do it. There's also the user guide you may want to download because it walks you through, screen by screen. They have the external checklist you could download and then print, so you can check off the documents you need. And then there's some facts that you can look up and then a quick start guide. So they have provided a lot of information for you to get started and going on your certification. So look those over. But again, if you're going to go in and do it, I would get a PTAC counselor or someone else to help you review your documents and then go through the application. So on this, I did do a previous in November of last year. I did how to get woman-owned small business certified, and this actually walked you through certain elements of the application. So it actually goes through the application. If you want to watch that video, I do believe I'm doing it again this year, but I think in August I might be doing it again. But if you're ready to do it right now, you can go back and look at that webinar, but also use the resources on the Prepare and the knowledge base to get you through that process. Okay, review timeline. So the SBA will not review an incomplete package. So basically when you submit it, they're going to review it. If you're missing documents or they don't like the documents that you provided, they're going to return it to you and tell you what you need to fix. I'm going to say that I have this in here, that the SBA analysts will reopen the sections. It's kind of hit or miss how they're doing it right now. Sometimes they'll just return it to you and tell you, you're starting over again. Sometimes they will reopen the sections if it's just a small matter. So it just depends, basically. But if you're working with your counselor, they can help you through that, help you get the documents done and resubmitted. They're supposed to advise each applicant within 15 calendar days where the application is complete. I believe this is taking a lot longer. Ever since they put this system in place, there's been lots of delays and backlogs. So, hopefully they're getting to where they can do it within 15 calendar days. I haven't heard of the recent concerns on this just because we're fighting so many SAM issues right now. And then they're supposed to make a determination on your package within 90 calendar days. I say it's probably taking 6 months to get through this whole process right now. But those are the review timelines they're supposed to meet, and hopefully eventually they will get to them. Okay, here's the application issues that I was talking about. Before you submit, if you're going to do it on your own, just go check your SAM registration and make sure that the owner is designated as the government point of contact. Otherwise, whoever's in the government point of contact is going to come up on your application as the owner. So, so just make sure that if you're the owner, your name is there and your information. You must include all your business documents, and if you don't, you have to do a detailed letter of explanation. So business documents could be, well, usually most people have their LLC documents. Sometimes they're missing their operating agreement because they're a single member LLC. If you're a single member LLC, I used to have people write a letter saying I'm a single member LLC and I don't need an operating agreement, but they don't accept that anymore. So you would need to put together an operating agreement. There's lots of samples out there. You can put it together a quick one. But for anything else that something's missing and you don't have, they want a detailed letter of explanation on why you don't have that. Okay, one of the biggest things is if you're a corporation, you need to have copies of all your stock certificates front and back and your stock ledger that's up to date on what stocks are out, what you're still holding. I know a lot of people that are just like a single member corporation have a lot of problems with this certificates because, they're never going to issue them. They've never had a stock ledger. Sometimes it's just two people and, the female has 51% and the male has 49%, and they've just never done the stock certificate part just because it's just the both of them. But you definitely need to do that. If you're a corporation, you need to have all that information. They're just going to keep returning it if you don't do the stock certificates and the stock ledger. And then that just leads to, an increased timeline on getting your certification done. Seems like the detailed resume with management experience is also an issue. Don't just dust off your resume that you put in for your last job. You need to definitely add your current position in your business and talk about everything that you do running that business. All the management experience, everything you make a decision on, that all needs to be in your detailed resume. And then the last one, sometimes we go through LegalZoom or, some other place that prepares our documents for us, and they don't always show that the ownership is a woman-owned ownership. It may just have a name or, something else. So go back through and look at your documents, especially if you didn't do them yourself, and make those changes. You can always do for California, the Secretary of State, there's a statement of information that you can upload and specify those things, and then you would just have to upload that when you do your application. If you're working with a PTAC counselor, have them look over your documents, and then you can make those changes. Okay, maintaining certification. So once you're totally certified, what do you do after that? So to remain certified, you have to go in each year and annually say, everything is the same, nothing has changed with my business. I'm still a woman-owned small business. I meet all the criteria. I'm a small business. I'm still 51% owned. I make all the decisions. So you just have to certify to that each year. And then they'll do a full program examination every 3 years. So they're going to want to review all your documents and ask you any questions if anything's changed. And then these are the penalties for misrepresentation. So if they find out that you're not telling the truth about something, they could suspend or debar you. They could do some civil penalties, and they can even do some criminal penalties. So when you're doing the application, just make sure that you're fully representing your company so that you don't have any of these things happen to you. I will say, back to the first bullet, because of their backlog and other issues, I've had some clients that have come up due for their annual review, and they just keep pushing it out. They're not opening it up for someone to do their annual review, so they're just pushing out their certification review. I think the last one, it was like July, they pushed it out to, just because they're so backlogged in actually doing the applications and doing the certifications. So just FYI for now, if you're already certified, you may get pushed out that way. And then here I'm gonna do a little summary of, basically it's why to get certified. So I'm gonna go over that again. So one of the reasons to get certified is the government agencies are mandated to award to certify a small business, and especially women-owned small business. There are lots of set-asides for that. If a contracting officer finds that there's more than 2 women-owned small business for that NAICS code, there really requires a set it aside for women-owned small business. So that's one of the great reasons to get certified and to use that certification is to get those set-aside contracts. And then again, it helps set your company apart in the marketplace. So you can advertise yourself as, a woman-owned small business. You can put it on your website. You can put it on your documents. It sets you a little bit higher than just a regular small business as far as goaling for the federal agencies. And again, increased access to government contracting opportunities. So again, that goes back to the set-asides and advocating for women-owned small business. If you see something that's set aside just for small business and there's more than one woman-owned small business that can do it, you can always write the contracting officer and talk about how it should be set aside for women-owned small business, especially to meet their goals. And then again, the prime contractor angle. If you're a small business and you're trying to get into some work, it's always good to start off with the primes. If you want to know how to get with primes, talk to your PTAC counselor. That's not something I'm going to answer here today. It takes a lot of work to do government contracting. So there's a lot of market research, a lot of angles to do. And it's not something we can really discuss today. I highly recommend everyone get a PTAC counselor, even if you just want to talk to them one time. We're happy to do that. We can put you in the right direction. Then the last thing I have here is the increased opportunities to network. Oh no, I think there's one more. So networking with primes, networking with other companies. Maybe you can do a joint venture, you know, things like that. It's always good to have that extra, either the WOSB or the disabled veteran or the hub zone. It's always good to have the higher level certifications over the small business certification, at least to more opportunities. And then again, the eligible for the mentor protege opportunities. So that's a really important one to get into. It's good to have that extra certification to go into that. So that's all I have for today. That kind of wraps it up. I hope it was hope it was helpful for you to determine whether you want to do this or not, or at least spark an idea that, you know, hey, I want to talk to my PTAC counselor about this, whether I qualify. They can help you get your documents together, you know, those types of things. So this was a huge overview with a lot of information. So digest it and then you know, talk to your PTAC counselor or sign up for PTAC counseling. I know I sound like a broken record, but it's really important. And James, do we want to put up our final poll, or did you want to talk about upcoming events first?
We can do both.
Okay.
Let's go ahead and launch the final poll while I talk about upcoming events. I'll just go and move the screen here. We don't have very much time, so I'll just very briefly just point you towards our calendar. We've got an introductory contracting webinar. If this was a little too in-depth for you, or you feel that, or you don't qualify and you're like, wait, well, I need to understand the basics of certifications in government contracting. This Thursday a week from today, I believe, how to do business with government. Then we've got a couple webinars on how to do business with California with the California DGS. We do have many questions here. I can tell you right now, we won't have time in the next 5 minutes to answer all of them, but we will get started and do what we can. I'm going to close the poll now, just get a little snapshot, and I'll share the results. Looks like most folks who are joined are interested in getting the WOSB, and about 41% for the EDWOSB, so that's great.
Yeah.
Nobody is not interested, but a couple folks are undecided. So thanks for letting us know.
Great. Yeah. Yeah, that's perfect. Glad the information was helpful to you. Again, get some help in making that final decision and documents and everything like that, because it can be overwhelming to do it by yourself. So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I'm sorry I cut us a little short there. I got a little close for questions. So let's see what we can
do. We have a lot of questions about exceptions and things like that.
Okay.
I can.
I'll probably refer you to your PTAC counselor for those. So.
Right. Yeah. There's if you do have any questions that aren't answered, which would be several of them, our contact information is on the page here, or find your local PTAC, even better. I know many of you are not in our service area, so reach out to your local PTAC and sit down and go with all these things. So the first question is from Ren, who's asking, we have a woman that's 80% owner of our business, but she's partly retired. Could we still apply for the woman-owned business certification?
The partially retired part is kind of gives me a pause because they need to make all the decisions. So it's really going to be based on how much of the decisions she makes, the type of business it is. So again, run that question by your PTAC counselor or get a PTAC counselor to give you the ins and outs of all that ownership.
Okay, and we have a question here where we have a company that's run through a consensus of directors, most of whom are women, most of the owners are women, but the managing director is male. Could they be classified as women-owned?
Your managing director is male. The managing director it's going to depend. Does he make all the decisions? Who makes all the decisions in the business? Is there is there one female that makes all the decisions, or it's just a cooperative?
It's a cooperative.
No,
Yeah.
actually it's a cooperative, but does the managing director, does he make all the business decisions? And again, this is another one to talk over with a counselor, because it's pretty complicated.
Yeah, a lot of these specific questions about exceptions and things like that, you have to get in and look at the documentation and the specific instances. But we totally understand why you want to ask them here to get your question answered. Is there a backlog for WOSB certifications?
Yes, I can confirm there's a backlog. If you just did it in February,
Yeah,
you're not going to hear for a while.
late February is relatively recent, and
Yeah, that's recent. Yeah,
unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
Okay. How do you find statistics on WOSBs by NAICS codes? I assume they mean by contract awards.
Yeah,
Or-
I mean, that's kind of hard for me to answer right here, but if you're familiar with SAM, you can go into their database, and there's one on there called Small Business Goaling, or one of them I think gives it by NAICS codes. Yeah, that's a hard one for me to answer here because it's, something you kind of have to dig for. Maybe talk to your PTAC counselor if they can find those stats for you, or show you where to find them.
Yeah, sam.gov is very, very helpful, the search function there. Okay. Let me try to cherry pick a little bit.
Yeah.
I assume this is for the EDWOSB. Is full-time based on payroll or time? I assume time, right, Nancy?
Yeah, time. Yeah, you need to devote full time to the business.
Right. Even if you haven't been able to pay yourself, yeah. That's
right. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Great.
Yeah, you can't work another full-time job and then say you're working full-time at your business too. Although, it's possible within a 24-hour day to do both, but they consider if you are working another job where you're getting paid, then that's probably your primary job.
And so we mentioned LLCs, partnerships, and corporations.
Yeah,
what about sole proprietorships? Are there any?
I'm sorry. Yeah, I usually say in their sole proprietorships because I always get the sole proprietorship question. But yes, your sole proprietor WOSB certification is going to be much simpler application for you. You can still apply for the WOSB.
Okay, great. Can you file for the EDWOSB later after you get the WOSB?
You can, yeah.
Yeah. You have to duplicate all the same work again.
No, because once you're WOSB, you can just open up the EDWOSB application.
Oh, okay.
And that's just uploading all your financials.
Oh, okay. Well, that's seems like a decent option. All right. So I think this may have been mentioned, but are there certain set asides for EDWOSB?
Yeah, that's what I was mentioning before. I've rarely seen it just set aside for EDWOSB. If it's set aside, it's going to be set aside for WOSB. All the goaling is, when you look at it, it's all WOSB. So there's no incentive for them to just set it aside for EDWOSB. That's why I said, really consider whether you're going to apply for EDWOSB because you get the same benefit from the WOSB. I mean, there's always certain exceptions, and that's why I say to work with a counselor.
Yeah. Okay. And do you still have to file spouse's financial information even if the spouse has no involvement or funds in the business?
The only reason you wouldn't file a spouse's financial is if you're legally separated.
So yes, you do it.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes.
Right. Yeah. Right. You think of it like as in taxes. It's like your household.
Right. Yeah. They're basically they're gonna.
Are you actually economically disadvantaged, or if your family is rich but you don't make income, then it won't count.
Right. They're going to climb through your whole business. That's why I say to consider what you're doing there.
Right. Yeah. Choose carefully to embark on that path. Okay. Let me see. Are nonprofit business structures not eligible?
No. I mean, yeah. Nonprofit. I don't know why you would want a WOSB if you're a nonprofit.
Right. Okay, great. Well, we're seeing a lot of activity in the chat. I can't review it all right now. I hope those of you who had a question were able to enter it into the Q&A. If your question was not answered, we are out of time here. Sorry, we did our best.
Yeah.
Really, the idea behind these webinars is to help you get your foot in the door and to let you know that there are resources here. Darlene Neal with Women's Business Center, and there's other WBCs as well, and there's PTACs all across the country. If you're having any issue, apply to your local PTAC. If you're still not having any help, then there's plenty of resources out there. So,
And can I just say one thing? I'm
please,
sorry.
please.
Please don't. There's a lot of scammers out there that try to look like official sites that try to get you to call them and get on a plan with them. Please don't do that. You have plenty of free resources, especially if you're just starting out. You can't afford to lose your money to those scammers. So please, talk to PTAC, talk to Darlene, look for those free resources. I have a lot of clients that have been scammed, and it really makes me mad.
Yeah, that's a really frustrating thing.
Yeah.
All these certifications are free, and working with PTACs and WBCs is free as well. So we are your tax dollars trying to help you win more of your tax dollars back. So
Yeah.
Absolutely. So folks are asking about the slides. As I've mentioned a couple times, the slides will be available as always on our website, norcalptac.org, under the resources past webinars tab. You're going to get a YouTube copy, a recording of this, everything, the whole Q&A and everything. You'll also get a PDF copy of the slides with all the clickable links. Fun fact, for many of your questions will be answered by prior webinars. One of you had a good market research question. We've got 4 years of webinars on there. You can Control F, or if you're on a Mac, Apple F, and find and look for keywords. I do this all the time, and I find webinars going back a year, 2 years, 3 years that has an answer to my questions. So we hope that you find that useful as well. And just a note that you should be redirected towards a survey right as we end this webinar. Just going to ask us what you thought of today's webinar. So we hope that you go ahead and just click on that and take a minute or two. You can do it anonymously. Just let us know how you felt. We always want to be improving our services. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining. And thanks, Darlene. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And all right, let me just go ahead. I'll drop the survey in the chat here. So I'll give you a couple seconds to click on that. But I think you should also be directed towards it if it works as you're leaving. You'll also get a link to it. And I'll be emailing everyone later today. So if you're registered, you'll get an email. And again, reach out to us or your local PTAC if you have any remaining questions. And thank you so much, everyone, and have a great day.